What happens when one man's sobriety sparks a global movement reaching millions? Today's guest turned his personal journey into a platform that's reshaped how we talk about addiction, fatherhood, and leadership. Stick around, you'll want to hear how one podcast became a lifeline for men around the world.
Welcome to the Sober Life Rocks podcast. You may have made the decision not to drink alcohol, or at the very least, not at work-related events. Whether you've never been a drinker, are in recovery, or made a health-related decision, we see you, and you are not alone. In today's world, networking, socializing, and celebrations often happen over drinks, and the struggle can be real. Through this podcast, we're changing that narrative. We're here to create a community where individuals like you, who choose not to drink or drink less, can find camaraderie, support, and practical advice.
Welcome to the Sober Life Rocks podcast, where we amplify sober voices from around the world. I'm your host, Margie Schaller, and every week we dive into powerful conversations with people living their sobriety out loud. But before we dive in, if you are an influencer or leader in the sober space, we applaud you. And we know that you pour into everyone else. But when was the last time you felt filled up? That's why we created Amplify Sober Voices, our thought leader conference happening January 15th, 2026. It's where speakers, writers, podcasters, and change makers come together to recharge, connect, and reimagine what an inclusive alcohol optional world really looks like. And guess what? Today's guest, Shane Raymer, will be taking the stage, bringing the fire to our discussion about how to grow your podcast. Head to Amplify Sober Voices to grab your ticket and join us. We would love to see you there. Now, Shane is a speaker, a coach, and the creator of That Sober Guy podcast, which has reached, wait for it, over 2.5 million listeners in more than 100 countries since its launch in 2014. Through his raw storytelling and practical tools, Shane helps men quit drinking and become better fathers, husbands, entrepreneurs, and leaders. Married for 20 years and a father of two, Shane brings a grounded, faith-forward approach to sobriety, proving that living alcohol-free can unlock deeper purpose in every area of life. Today, we're diving into a story, the ripple effect of That Sober Guy, and why being a sober leader might just be the ultimate power move. Shane, welcome to the program.
Margie, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for having me on today. Love the intro, by the way. Lots of exciting stuff going on with you and Laura and the team. I'm just really honored to be on the show today. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I know a little bit about you, but not very much. Maybe you could just start out by telling us kind of a brief version of your story of, how you came to be sober, and then I want to dive into some other stuff after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to keep this short and sweet. If you want to hear the full version or bits and pieces, definitely go check out That Sober Guy podcast. We have over 500 episodes and all kinds of parts of my story and great guests as well. So, I grew up in Northern California. My parents were really young when they had me. They were both high school dropouts, and this was in the early 80s. And substance was a normal thing. Alcohol, other substances in our house when I was young. My father really struggled with that, and like I said, him and my mom were young when they had me. They didn't have a lot of life's tools, I guess, healthy tools in a sense to help deal with some of the things that they were going through. One of the things I'll point out without getting too much into their background too is they both suffered from traumatic experiences as kids. My mom being adopted, and that's a bit of a trauma in its own way. I think I have great grandparents, but I think that always stayed with her. And as she got older, she eventually found her birth mom, which was awesome. And then my dad, his sister, my aunt, suddenly died at the age of 7 years old, and he really struggled with that. I think he was 15 at the time. So I bring that up because as I've gone through my own struggles and, became a man and a husband and a father, you start to look at your parents in a different aspect where I really blame them for a lot of years for the things I was going through. And um, just the way that I was, and you see things in a different light when you get sober and you start to process and work through a lot of those things. So I love my parents very much. I have great relationships with both of them. They're both in their own spots these days, which is awesome. But it was tough growing up. There was a lot of domestic disputes, domestic violence, calls to the house, and it was a very chaotic environment. But what was crazy is it was a loving environment at the same time. There was a lot of things that went on and happened that made me walk on eggshells and feel like I really just didn't want to be home. Which, as I got into my teens, that's kind of what happened. I was out a lot at friends' house and doing other things. Um, but yeah, it was tough to navigate. It was confusing. I like to refer to it as controlled chaos. And I will say there was also a lot of good times. Camping and going to Lake Tahoe. I mean, one of my favorite spots to go to, going snowboarding and skiing as a kid. And we had a great family out in Napa, California. Some of my family's still there, but we did have family gatherings, and so there was support there, and there was a family atmosphere. It was just very dysfunctional, and so I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. Like, show me somebody who says their family's perfect, and I'm probably going to say you're lying, because that's usually not the case. Um, but yeah, as that progressed, I started drinking when I was in my teens, and it just got it. It was fun for a short period of time, but it got worse over the years. And as I got married and had my daughter, I was in my early 30s, and I was struggling really, really bad. I couldn't stay sober. I was drinking at work, on the way to work. I was making really bad decisions. My finances were a mess. I had no direction. I had no drive. I had all these great ideas, but there was no action behind them because I was just consistently in that cycle. So after trying to quit on my own quite a few times, that I would put a couple weeks together here and there, but I thought I could kind of white knuckle through and do it on my own. I finally threw my hands up at the point when I just was. People ask me what did it, and I mean, there's a lot of elements to it to getting sober, but number one, I was completely exhausted. I was tired of living in that cycle every day, saying I was going to stop and I was going to get things together, and then being back in the same place, by noon that day. And then the other thing is, I had two feelings in my gut. I had one feeling that something really bad was about to happen if I didn't make this decision, because I had been skating on thin ice for a while. And the other thing, I had a really deep gut feeling that God had something more for my life and for my family's life, for my kids. And so that was a really big motivating factor, for me, just to drive forward and make this decision to go get some help and get sober. And then also for my wife and for my kids, and to change that generational curse that some would refer to, and the chaos and kind of that dysfunction that I grew up in, because I was heading down that same path. So yeah, so I woke up, one day, and I made that decision. I told my wife, I told my best friend what was going on. I went and got some help, and that was on September 11th, 2013. And I haven't looked back since. And it's been, there's been definite challenges, ups and downs, but it was one of the best decisions I've made in my life, is cutting that out, cutting alcohol, other substances out of my life. And man, it's been an amazing ride, I would say, up until now. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. There's definitely
Yeah.
tons more to it, but yeah, I think that's a good synopsis. They're short and sweet.
So what I love about that is that growing up in an alcoholic family, I did as well. It's not black and white, and it's complicated. And what I heard you say, and what I love so much, is our parents who were caught in their own cycle of crazy, drinking or
Yeah,
using, whatever it was, they weren't bad people.
no,
They weren't mean intentioned. They were just caught in that same crazy cycle, which is then what, at least for me, helped me to have some forgiveness about myself, because I vowed I would never be like my mom. And turns out I was
yeah,
exactly like my mom. And there I was with
yeah,
these two young kids causing chaos all the time. So, it was helped me to have some forgiveness for myself as well.
yeah.
So I love that part of your story. So, Shane, I want to ask you, because even back in 2013, I mean, there was still some pretty hardcore stigma around getting sober. But you launched that Sober Guy podcast back in 2014, before podcasts about sobriety was even like a thing.
Yeah.
What inspired you to hit record? And did you ever imagine it would become such a powerful global platform?
Yeah, I love talking about this, and there's a couple elements to it, so I want to make sure I hit on those. Number one, um, I'm a creative dude. I'm a musician. That was actually one of my biggest. I had two big dreams. It was to play baseball, which didn't end up panning out. I got hurt, and as I got out of high school, I ended up not being able to play. And then I always loved music, and so I was in little bands here and there in high school. And then as I got out and couldn't play baseball anymore, I wanted to pursue a career in the music business. And so that creative writing, singing, playing guitar, playing shows, all that was a huge part of my life for many many years. And the problem with that was, though, is that I was under the impression that in order to be a musician and be in the music business, you had to party like that too. And so it didn't work out. And as I got older, that lifestyle gets harder and harder and harder, and it wasn't working. And so when I got sober, I actually quit doing music. And I remember, those first couple of months, it was tough. I felt like there was a big void in that creative space. And but the problem was is that I connected the music to partying for the most. So it just felt really awkward and weird. And as I think I was about 6 months sober at the time, and I was commuting back and forth for work, probably 4 to 5 hours a day, like there and back, and a lot in Northern California. I was going out to Santa Rosa, California, and it's just there's a lot of traffic, and I was in a little Chevy S10 5-speed stick shift with no AC in the middle of like the summertime, and it was yeah, it was not fun, and I was also trying to stay sober at that time too. So my friend Justin, he goes, "Hey, bro, check out this podcast called The New Man with Trip Lanier." And I said, "What's a podcast?" And the only thing I had heard of a podcast, we had a friend who was a DJ, and he had a DJ set that he produced as a podcast. So I didn't know what a podcast was as far as like verbally and audio and talking and conversation. But when I turned that on and listened to Trip, I was doing that on my commutes, and he was super motivating, and I loved it. I was like, man, this guy's awesome, and I love what he's talking about, and he really fired me up. And then I moved on and started listening to like Pat Flynn and John Lee Dumas, and so I was getting this motivation and growth through my commutes, every single day. And at the I don't even really know when it kind of hit, but I do remember waking up or laying in bed with my wife and sitting up and going, I'm going to start a podcast, and I'm going to just talk about my sobriety. And she was like, okay, like, all right, we'll do it then. And I'm like, yeah. And I started looking, and there wasn't really anything. Dr. Drew had a podcast. I think Loveline was out there at the time. And I think there was some, maybe an AA podcast, and there may have been a couple here and there, but I really couldn't find anything that I connected with, really. And so, yeah, that's kind of what led to it. And I started doing homework. I had old music equipment laying around that I kind of pieced together, and was watching a lot of YouTube videos, and leaning on guys like Pat Flynn, to kind of help the technical pieces of how to put this thing together. And it was scary, it was scary because I didn't know, like I had never done it before. Nobody else did it. Nobody else was really doing it, especially like the people I knew and stuff. So I didn't know what they would think. And there was that whole thing of it too, but I didn't care. I just went for it. And I think I
Well, let
interviewed.
me ask you this,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
one of the things that I think about is, my story is that I getting sober back in 2005, like the stigma was hardcore about
Yeah.
people being sober. And so I didn't tell anybody in my professional life that I was sober, literally for 18 and a half years.
Yeah.
And so
That's
that
crazy.
coupled with, AA has this thing about anonymity.
Hmm.
And, I got sober in AA. I loved my time in AA. And anonymity to me was like, I don't tell anybody else's story. I don't talk about anybody else's sobriety. But for some reason, there seemed to be this sort of blanket of like, you never talk about anybody's, including your own sobriety, outside of the rooms of
Yeah.
AA. And so I was afraid, quite frankly, to say anything to anybody. And when I would hear somebody say something out in public about it, I'd be like, oh, like they're breaking a rule, right?
Yeah. Legalism.
Shush, stop.
Yeah.
And in fact, the first time that I saw somebody like on social media talking about being sober, I was just like, oh, I can't look.
Yeah.
It
That's
was so
funny.
indoctrinated in me. So how did you like reconcile that with this
Yeah.
passion to start a podcast and talk about it out loud?
So in all fairness, I think I was a little bit naive to that. And I just kind of am thinking and processing this as you're talking about it and we're asking the question. But I think I was a little naive at that point. I was still really new in the rooms too. And so first and foremost, I want to say the rooms helped me so much, through especially my early journey. And there's still things today that I talk about, use, say, help with, recommend, all those types of things from the program. So they were a huge part of my sobriety early on, definitely. And I just, you know, I think there was the naive part of it, but there was also a really big part of it that I felt like I had hid stuff for 17 years. I mean, by the end of my drinking, I was hiding bottles of vodka in my golf bag. I was hiding them in my car. I was sneaking out. My wife would know that I was drinking a little bit, but what she didn't know is I was sneaking out to the garage to my golf bag, taking a few shots of vodka and coming back in throughout the night. And so she didn't know, like I was hiding stuff. And so I really, I had this feeling that, gosh, I'm so tired of hiding this. And does everybody feel like this? Like, is it just me? Like, and I really wanted to share like what I was going through and some of my story, because I had a feeling that there was a lot of other people out there that were probably feeling and going through the same thing. And so I always tried to stay in line with the anonymity piece of that, not overstepping my boundary there, but also not falling into that dogma at the same time that I'm not allowed to share my
Mhm.
experience and my story. I'm never gonna break someone else's and share their stuff, but I provide a platform for them to do that if they would like to. That's their choice. So I
Mhm.
think that's kind of the way I approached it, a little bit of naiveness, but then a bigger piece of that was just like, I'm so tired of hiding stuff. And I want to share this in order to maybe help some other people out there.
Mm. I love that. So, I started this podcast a year and a half ago, and I really had not been a podcast listener either. So I quickly like started trying to listen to them in different areas, and I went out and bought this little microphone, and I'm like, I'm a podcaster now. But
Love it.
it grows, it starts to grow, it starts to spread. But did you ever envision the impact that it would have today with this global reach and these millions of listeners?
You know, my my humbleness wants to say no, I never thought that. Like I just was doing one. But to be honest with you, like I had, like, God gave me a vision that like the podcast industry was going to, well, I don't know. I felt like it was God, like speaking through me, like it was something, and something gave me this vision that like the podcast industry was going to explode and it was going to be a normal thing. Cause at that time, nobody was really listening to podcasts. If you asked somebody what a podcast was, most people didn't know. And a side point, I went into a Fortune 250 company in 2015 and pitched a podcast idea to them. And I still do that corporate work today. I built a podcast platform inside of a huge Fortune 250 company, which we use it as one of our main communication platforms. So it was like I would this battle I was doing was like trying to get people to know, like, hey, do you know what a podcast is? Like here. So I kind of knew that there was something there in the podcast space alone. But then I also knew that there was definitely going to be something there as people started to open up in their sobriety and started to talk about it more, and it started to
Mm.
become a movement. Like my goal in the beginning was to make sobriety cool. Like it really was, as simple as that sounds. Like I just wanted people to know, and particularly men, like you can be you can be manly, you can be a man's man, you can work hard, you can play sports, you can have a business, you can do all those things, and you can be sober and do it all. You don't have to fall into that. You can go to a
Mm.
baseball game, you can go to a concert, you can go to a wedding, you can go to a funeral, and you don't have to drink just because the normalcy bias behind that says that you do. And we've been fed that for decades now. So I think that, yeah, I kind of had a feeling that where that where the podcast and sober space was trending, and it was a motivating. Now, did I ever think that we'd be over? I think we're up to almost 4 million listeners now, and no, I don't know that I had like that, but I knew that it was trending in that direction. If that makes sense.
That's amazing. And I think about, as somebody who is being open about your journey and inviting other people on, like there's a certain, I don't know, weight and responsibility that comes with being a voice in this space, right?
Yeah.
So how do you particularly stay grounded in your own journey while continuing to show up for others at such a large scale?
Yeah, great question. I try to put God first in everything I do, and I try to stay connected to that. This life is short. I'm gonna die one day, and so like I know a lot of people trip out on that. Those have a issue with something. I go, you're gonna die, right? And they're like, wait, what? I'm like, I mean, it's inevitable.
Facts.
They're all going to. It's a fact. Like, there's no getting around it. So like, I want to make the most of this experience here with my friends, with my family, with my kids, and so I think just I think that helps me stay grounded a lot. And
Mm,
just I know that this everything is temporary here, and God is my anchor. That's my foundation. He's always came through for our family, even when in times when it didn't necessarily work out like maybe I wanted it to or I thought it would. It's always worked out some way or another, and I trust that. I trust in Him. I trust that you know I can do the next right thing, and things are going to work out just how they're supposed to. So there's a lot of acceptance in there, and I gotta say, I gotta give a shout out to my mentor, Buddy C. Buddy, I worked with him for a long time when the first couple years in, and he's a great dude. He has an app called Sober Meditations. It's awesome. But he really showed me a lot about the difference between religion and a relationship with God, and then
mm,
also the value of acceptance, and what you can accomplish with acceptance, and then forgiveness, and be staying in the moment, staying present, just really focusing on doing the next right thing. And it's hard to do sometimes. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but I think just keeping that in mind. And look, we have a great platform, but I'm not really doing anything like special. Like, I'm showing up. I the one value, or the one big thing I've always like said I will do. I will always put out like great, valuable content. Like, that's been my one rule. And the caveat to that is I will always have fun. So as long as I'm showing up, I'm having, putting out great content for folks, and I'm having fun, like the rest will fall into place. And I've really just kind of tried to stay on path with that, and it's worked. I mean, it's working, and that's what works for me.
well, take me behind the scenes a little bit. You just said something really important, that you want to send out valuable content.
hmm
Take me behind the scenes. What do you use to figure out what is going to be valuable content?
Gosh, well, I mean, a lot of it is experience, things that we've been through, different tips, different stories, different testimonies, different people. So the show is a collaboration, I guess, of monologue podcasts and guests. So we kind of do a
Mhm.
mix of both. Um, there's so much. I mean, I'll just give you a basic one. And some of it is repetitive. I mean, after 530 something episodes, there's repetition, but that's a good thing. I've learned. That's one thing I've learned, is that we need repetition. So I have to always remember and keep in mind that whatever I'm delivering, even if it's something that I've said or recorded 50 times, there might be somebody listening, which more than often than not there is, that's hearing this for the very first time. And so that's really
Mhm.
important to recognize for me. But one of the biggest ones, and maybe this is a tip for somebody out there listening too, we just talked about this on our Monday mindset mastermind meeting. Um, Like, what do you do at an event? Like, how do you prep to go to an event or a weekend, or maybe it's a wedding. That's always a classic example, right? And you're really, maybe you're 30 days in, or you're 60 days, and you're really trying to get some traction and just stay away from drinking. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you do that? And there's a few different things that you do, but one of them, just the basis of it, is having a plan. Like, going into things with a plan. Like, who's going to be there? Where is it at? What am I going to be drinking? How am I going to respond to somebody when they ask me if I want to drink, or if they ask me, why aren't you drinking? Like, those types of things, like, and they sound really simple, but they're so important, and it could mean it could make or break somebody, in other words. And so that's just one example. A lot of great guests on the show. Gosh, we've had some amazing, amazing guests. One of my favorite guests, I love having, my wife hasn't been on in a while, but I love having her on. My best friend, Seth Manser, he's been on quite a few times. And then what's cool is, you remember I mentioned Trip Lanier, who actually got me started. Trip and I became friends over the years. I just would hit him up and, Trip, man, hey, what's up, dude? Like, I would ask him questions, and he always responded, and he was super cool. And we kind of formed a little friendship. And so I've been on his show, and he's been on Sober Guy a couple of times, which is awesome. So I think just those relationships, and there's been so many awesome things that have come out of the podcast itself. So super grateful for
For
that.
sure. For sure. Now, I know one of the things that I have particularly enjoyed in this process is getting to know people in this space. Everybody is so willing to be giving and so
Mm,
willing to help.
yeah.
And, we're all fueled by this greater purpose, this greater intention of trying to help others to get the life that we have. What do you feel like are some of the shifts that you've experienced internally yourself throughout this journey?
Yeah, well, I'm sure you've heard the saying, to keep it, you got to give it away. Like, that's a pretty classic one. And it's true. Being of service, I didn't really have a lot of concept of that before I got sober. We're selfish human beings. We're born selfish. It's just the nature of a human being. And now, of course, a lot
Mhm.
of people are great, like amazingly giving people. Don't get me wrong, but I think at the core, a lot of us are focused on self, and that's a normal thing. And when you start to think outside of that and get away, and especially when we're locked in addiction, well, we're really selfish then. But so that service mindset and giving back, one of the things Buddy would always tell me, and we would always talk about, if I was struggling with something, he'd be like, well, go help someone else. I mean, at first
Mhm.
it's like, well, what do you mean? Like, I'm struggling with this. Like, I need help with this. He's like, nah, just go help someone else. And every time it works. Like, it takes you out of self, and it helps you understand that we're here to help other people. We're here to
Mhm.
help our neighbors. We're here to help our family, our friends, strangers, even, and just be giving. And maybe, and when I say help, it doesn't mean that, like, it has to be this big grandiose thing too. Literally, it could just be holding the door, or smiling at someone, or having a quick conversation with somebody, or asking them how their day is going. Just trying to bring that positive mindset and that positive vibe around people. And so I think that's, back to the service piece. I think the service piece has probably been one of the biggest things. And the podcast, Sober Guy, has really helped me stay focused on that. There's been quite a few times when I wanted to just quit and just give up and not do it anymore, just, for different reasons. It's a lot sometimes. But I've always continued to have fun with it. And so I felt like it was almost back to that music thing. Like, if I quit doing this, it would be such a huge void in my life. Like, I love having conversations. I love writing. I love creating. So I think that's a little piece of it, to that creative part. But yeah, the service piece is absolutely huge. And I'm telling you, those listening out there, when you get in that mindset, and you get in the service mindset, and you're struggling with something, and you can focus on other people, it works every time.
Absolutely. It doesn't make the thing go away, but it makes our obsession around it
Totally.
lessen for
Yep.
sure. Shane, you're more than just a podcast host, though. Talk to me about some of the other stuff that you do, some of the other ways that you're of service.
Um, oh gosh. Well, I mean, I have a amazing men's group at our church. It's our Tuesday mornings, that I'm a part of. So I love showing up to that. And sometimes it's hard because it's early in the morning. So, but I'm there most of the time. And so that's a great group of guys. Really helps to keep me grounded and just keep that foundation solid and be able to share, what's going on in my life and listen to other, my other dudes in our group, what's going on in their lives. And so that's a really big part of it. And then, coaching my kids, I'm not actively coaching right now just because I have a lot of other things going on and my son's getting a little older now. But I coached his baseball for years and my daughter's softball. And so just, that coach mindset, I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite things to do. Just seeing the kids and being around and encouraging them and having a good time. And I think just trying to be like, easy, like at ease, like just where I am,
Mhm.
because I think that bleeds out to other people. So it's not me trying to like be of service and do all the things. Like it's literally just like, I'm just trying to be at ease because I'm going to die one day. Right. Like I want to be why am I going to stress about stupid stuff? And why am I like, and I'm not saying there's things that I don't deal with that are serious. There definitely is. And I'm, and maybe there's someone listening who's going to something really serious right now. And they're like, yeah, whatever. Like, I don't want to be,
Easy for you to say, right?
yeah, I don't want to be like that. I do acknowledge that, and I know that life can be really, really hard sometimes. I've had different friends who have lost their kids, like gone through divorce. We've had a lot of divorce going on in our friend circle in the last couple of years. So broken families, health issues in so I mean, there's a lot of things like, trust me, where it's not just happy go lucky all the time, but I think that the training in that in the day to day, it helps me to deal with those really serious things from like more of a level head versus if I was like,
Mhm.
if I didn't have those tools. And in turn, I think what I can do in those situations is help those other people to kind of get through those by being there for them. And just being in a good place with it. So, yeah. I think that's a couple good things there for sure.
I remember when I first got sober, and again in the rooms of AA, somebody said something that stuck with me for years that I didn't really understand. And he said, I want to live life like a fitting coat."
Yeah, I love that.
And I was like, I don't really, I mean, I knew it was important and it stuck
Yeah,
in my head, but I had been raised to like by a women's lib mom, that you have to try
mm,
harder, be better, show up
yeah,
earlier, stay later, be the best mom, be the best wife, be the best employee, be the best friend, show up when people are hurt, like all the things. And so my whole life was about like push, push, do, more, more, more. And then when I got sober and my head cleared a little bit, I was like, wow, now look how much more I can do.
yeah. I know, isn't that funny?
It
Yeah.
didn't occur to me that loose fitting coat meant ease up a little bit
Ease.
and that I don't have to perform for everybody. I don't have to show up and be the best for everything. That I'm enough
Yeah. Yeah,
just
that's good.
because I show up. And it's taken me, well, I'll be honest, it's taken me working through the program of adult children of alcoholics
Mm,
to get there.
yeah. It's a big
And
book.
that's been really powerful. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
it's been
awesome.
really powerful. Um, you also are a sober coach, is that correct?
I am. Yes. Yeah,
Tell
we
me about
we
that.
so we have a great men's community. If you go over to that soberguy.com, you can check it out there. We have the Victory Circle. That's our free men's community. There's tons of dudes in there from all over the place. And then we also have our Victory Council, which is our men's mastermind. And so we have a couple meetings a week. We have some guest speakers. It's more of a private, intimate group in that one. And then I also do one-on-one coaching, and all that is over at the website thatsoberguy.com. You can find all that there. And I like back to the coaching thing. I mean, I love doing that. I love helping and being of service and just trying to get guys to see that their full potential in this, and to not be bogged down in their businesses, in their marriages, in their roles as fathers. Sobriety is a game changer, 100%. And you know that. I mean, you have almost 20 years or 20 years. I mean, yeah, it's
Hmm.
it's pretty amazing stuff. So go ahead.
But I
Sorry.
think it's really important with, a man talking to a man because so much of what we have to do to get sober can feel like we're admitting to a weakness.
Mm, Such a
And
great point.
so much of what we're dealing with can feel as though, if I was just strong enough, I could
Mm-hmm.
handle this.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
I love that there is a space for men talking to men about how much stronger we can be when we make powerful choices like putting down the drink or the drug.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's so amazing to see, and it's hard too, like because a lot of guys they don't. If you haven't been in meetings or you haven't been in like a men's group or you're new to that, it can be scary. So I totally get that. Like I understand. I always try to encourage guys, just come check it out. You don't even have to say anything. Just pop in and like see what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so cool to see guys in there sharing and talking and connecting and relating. The opposite of addiction is connection. That's one of the biggest pieces I think people miss is that connection piece because we can get any even like no even if we're just like a weekend binge drinker or whatever. I mean, you can still isolate and you start to
Mm-hmm.
isolate and you see that starting to happen further and we get away from that human connection. That's a huge piece in being successful in cutting some of that drinking out. So yeah, that's a
Thousand percent.
great question. And I was going to say something else. Dang it! Now I forgot. It must have not been that important.
If not, just
Yeah,
dive in.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I want to kind of put you on the spot because you just talked about connection.
Mm.
And I want to know, you're going to be one of our speakers for Amplify Sober Voices
Yeah, so
conference.
excited about that, by the way. So
And I want
pumped.
to know why. Tell me what you're excited about.
Oh man, I'm excited to meet you guys, you and the team. I'm excited to come out and just connect with other people too. We talked a little bit in our call a few weeks back, and this was something that that I've been thinking about for years. I'm not the best like at planning events, and like this is not my cup of tea, but I'm always like excited about it when for other people, and I've been to tons of conferences and been parts of them and podcasted and all that, spoke all that stuff, but I always thought, man, it'd be so cool to have like a podcast type of sober conference. So when you guys reached out to me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I think there's some excitement around that for me. Of course, I'm super excited to speak and just share a little bit about the podcast space and some of my journey. And hopefully it helps some other folks out there who are either new in the podcast game or they're trying to build their podcast game, whatever that looks like. I'm super grateful though. And I'm really excited to meet you, meet the team, and meet everyone at the conference. So January, we'll be here before we know it, and we'll be rocking and rolling.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else that I haven't asked that you'd like to share as we wrap up?
Um, Gosh, I think, if you're a dude out there and you're struggling, just reach out, man. You're not alone in this. You're not the only one going through, the drinking, if that's the issue, which it can be for a lot of guys, especially high performers. I work with a lot of high performer, executive business owners, entrepreneurs, entertainers, and so there's a lot of pressure in that to perform. And I'll say even just like I'm from a construction background. I'm a drywall finisher by trade, so there's a lot of pressure in that space. Construction, just your blue collar jobs too, like to perform and to live up to this certain, maybe image, or you work hard and you party hard. That is shifting, and it's slowly trending and going in the other direction. And I'm actually going to put out a podcast here in just a couple of weeks. I already have the pre-production done on it, but it's titled something along the lines of drinking will be the new smoking within 5 to 10 years. Everybody hates smoking now. Like it's like totally changed, like what it was in the 80s, and 90s. And I really think that I don't ever think alcohol is going to go away, but I do think we're seeing a huge trend in the normalcy bias that is associated with it. It's starting to shift. And so I just want dudes to know, like you can still be strong. You can still be a man. You can still be a great dad, a great husband, a great business owner, great entrepreneur. You can do all those things and still have fun and not have to be, obligated or have that need that you have to drink to get through everything. So you're not alone. Reach out. You can find all our info at thatsoberguy.com. Check out our free Sober Guy men's community, the Victory Circle. We'd love to have you join.
And we'll have all of that in the show notes as well. And so thank you for that reminder. If Shane's story reminded you that, sober living isn't just about removing alcohol, it's about stepping fully into your role as a parent, a partner, a leader, then this is your invitation to rise up too. I want you to share this episode with someone else who's ready to hear this message or to lead with purpose. Tap follow so you don't miss more powerful conversations like this. And if you're serious about showing up in your home or your business or your community as your most grounded, alcohol-free self, get your ticket to Amplify Sober Voices, because we're bringing together all of the change makers just like Shane for a day of inspiration and connection and real talk. And if you belong in that room, we can't wait to see you. Join us at amplifysobervoices.com and let's keep building this movement together. Until next time, keep leading loud. Your voice matters. Thank you, Shane.
Thanks, Margie.